Good evening. I am reporting from Minnesota, where a powerful and emotional public hearing is putting federal immigration enforcement under an intense spotlight. Today's story begins with a blunt message from Washington. Representative Pramila Jayapal, the ranking Democrat on the House Immigration Subcommittee, stood alongside Representative Ilhan Omar to say that what they heard from Minnesotans cannot be ignored. After listening to hours of testimony, Jayapal concluded that the treatment described by community members points to a deeper problem with how immigration enforcement is operating here, and she says it demands accountability.
Pramila Jayapal. I'm the ranking Democrat on the Immigration House Subcommittee in Congress, and I am so grateful to be here in Minnesota with my incredible colleague, Representative Ilhan Omar, who has helped me in partnership put together a public hearing where we were able to hear testimony from Minnesotans about the brutality and the violence of ICE and CBP agents here in Minnesota. The two panels that we listened to were on top of a dinner we had last night with a number of advocates in the community who talked to us about the stories they are hearing every single day. And I will tell you, it's very difficult to summarize any of them other than to say that we need ICE and CBP out of Minnesota, and we need real accountability for the abuses of constitutional rights that we are seeing take place with seeming impunity. We were incredibly grateful to be joined today by 28 members of Congress, members of the House of Representatives from our House Democratic Caucus, from 18 states across the country. And I hope that that tells Minnesotans that what is happening here, we understand, is not only an absolute abuse of the rights, the constitutional protections, and the very notion of what it means to be in America or to be an American, but also that we see this pattern across the country, where we had a hearing in Illinois, we've had hearings on multiple parts of the different sets of abuses that are happening in the detention centers, which have turned into incarceration facilities run by private for-profit contractors, all the way to the kidnappings and the detentions and the deportations and the disappearances of people of every single immigration status. People who are US citizens, people who are green card holders, people who are here undocumented but have committed absolutely no crime. And so it is now my honor to say, well, before I do that, let me just say we have levers in Congress. We have the power of the purse, and we can demand accountability before giving a single dime more to DHS, to ICE, and CBP. We can also hold these hearings. This is the 6th in a series that I've been holding called Kidnapped and Disappeared, and we'll continue to do these hearings. But I promise you, Minnesota, you are not alone, and we will stand up for real accountability, for justice, for all of you and for all of America. And with that, it is my great honor to introduce my incredible colleague, the Deputy Chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus.
Before we go further, if you value reporting that breaks down complex issues and centers real people, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you do not miss our continued coverage. This was not a routine political event. Lawmakers convened a public hearing outside of Washington, deliberately bringing Congress to the community. The goal was simple but significant: to hear directly from people who say they have experienced or witnessed aggressive actions by ICE and Customs and Border Protection. These are agencies tasked with enforcing immigration laws, but critics argue that the way those laws are enforced often crosses ethical and legal lines. What makes this hearing different is the structure. Two panels of witnesses shared first-hand accounts, not policy papers or statistics, but lived experiences. Advocates described families separated during routine check-ins, parents detained without clear explanations, and neighborhoods living in constant fear of raids. These stories were reinforced by a private dinner the night before, where community leaders told lawmakers that what they hear during the day is only a fraction of what immigrants face every week. Jayapal made clear that summarizing these stories is difficult, not because they lack detail, but because they share a common theme: fear, trauma, and a sense of powerlessness. From her perspective, this is not about isolated incidents. It is about a pattern that raises serious questions about oversight, training, and accountability within federal enforcement agencies. Subscribe now if you want clear, fact-driven reporting that connects policy decisions to real-world consequences. To understand why this matters, it helps to step back. ICE and CBP operate under federal authority, often far removed from local governments and community oversight. While they are meant to enforce immigration law, critics argue that weak transparency and limited consequences for misconduct allow harmful practices to continue. Supporters of reform say hearings like this are one of the few tools Congress has to document abuses and push for change. Representative Ilhan Omar emphasized the local impact. Minnesota is home to many immigrant communities, including refugees who came seeking safety. When enforcement actions are perceived as violent or indiscriminate, trust between communities and all levels of government erodes. That mistrust can spill over into public safety, health access, and education, affecting entire neighborhoods, not just undocumented individuals. This is why Jayapal's statement that ICE and CBP should be removed from Minnesota is so striking. It reflects a growing call among progressive lawmakers to rethink not just policies, but the presence and role of these agencies altogether. Whether that call gains traction in Congress remains uncertain, but the hearing ensures that these testimonies are now part of the public record. If this kind of in-depth, human-centered reporting matters to you, subscribe to the channel and stay with us as this story develops. As lawmakers return to Washington, the question is, what happens next? Will these testimonies lead to investigations, legislative reforms, or changes on the ground? Or will they join a long list of warnings that fade from the headlines? For the families who spoke out, the hope is simple, that being heard will finally lead to protection, dignity, and accountability. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more clear, contextual reporting that helps you understand not just what happened, but why it matters.